Ultrasound days are such a great day when you're expecting a baby. I remember pulling into the parking lot and we decide whether we're going to park the blue stork or the pink stork. Do we park with the blue stork or the pink stork? And we walk up the stairs and we sit in the waiting room. And as we sit and wait, we're just excited in anticipation. And then they call us back to the ultrasound room. And as we sit in there and it's dark and it's kind of cold, you wait and the ultrasound tech comes in and she starts to take some pictures. And as she's going through doing this, I remember Kimberly and I just waiting. Are we gonna have a boy or girl? Now we've been through this twice already, so we know this process. And eventually she says to us, do you wanna know what you're having? And we say, yes, we do. She says, congratulations, there it is, it's a boy. And if you've had a boy, you know what I mean when they say, there it is. It's exciting and you celebrate. And I remember Kimberly and I just hugged each other and we kissed and we just talked and we were just going, kind of went into our own little world for a few minutes. And the ultrasound tech just kept taking pictures. And then we decided how we're gonna tell people, because back then you didn't throw a gender reveal party, you just told people. And so we going through who do we call first, we call your parents or my parents, and she just kept on taking pictures. Well, eventually we realized that this ultrasound tech, she's taking a lot of pictures, more than we're used to. So she eventually leaves the room and comes back in with Dr. LaForest. And Dr. LaForest says, Mike and Kimberly, I need to talk to you about your son. On the ultrasound, we saw some pictures that there's a cyst on his brain, and that this cyst has a whole lot of issues. And she began to tell us a lot of things that honestly at this point, it's all a fog of what she was telling us about the medical issues. And then she said, I also need to talk about his feet. His feet are curled up like this into a ball. And I said, what does that mean? And she said, well, he's gonna have casts on his legs and braces, and he's gonna slowly, eventually learn how to walk, but he'll be no athlete. Well, that was a tough way to walk out of that room. And so we walked out and we held hands as we walked down the stairs and down the sidewalk and eventually back to our car. And we sat in the car and didn't really say much for probably a minute or two. And then finally I looked at her and said, well, we should probably pray. So we prayed and asked for a miracle, and then we drove home. Well, 4 weeks go by, and these 4 weeks might as well have been 4 months. And we go back in for another ultrasound. We go up the stairs and sit in the waiting room, and then they take us back to the ultrasound room where it's cold and dark, and they're taking more pictures. Now this time the energy is not the same as it was when we first went to go see our son. But they took pictures, and eventually Dr. LaForest comes in and says, Mike and Kimberly, we need to talk about your son. He started out with 1 cyst on his brain, but now there's 3 cysts around his brain, and they've spread. I said, okay, what does that mean? And she went on to tell us a bunch of stuff. I said, how about his feet? She said, no, his feet are still all curled up and all the same issues, so he'll be no athlete, but he'll eventually walk. Okay, thank you very much. You see, we've been through this several times before. We had 2 sons already, and those had gone perfectly fine. So we had never dealt with these type of issues, and yet it felt like all these things were coming at us. We had been through this and done it before with no issues. Now nothing's changed, but yet everything's changed. And it felt like control was being taken away from us. Now, is our life changing? What would it look like if we had to deal with the changes of our life with a child who can't walk or has all these different issues? So we had a plan that we had always been used to, but now it felt like everything was shifting. And life is about making sure that in these moments, 1, you know who you are, you know what makes the most sense for your family, and at the same time, you make sure that you have plans to cover yourselves no matter what. So 4 weeks go by, and we finally come back in for our final ultrasound. And as we come in, we go up the stairs, through the lobby, into the ultrasound room, and it's still cold and it's still dark. And they go to take pictures, and as we sit there and wait, there's no more smiles, no more excitement. We're just sitting and waiting. And she takes pictures, and it seems like she's taken a lot this time. So eventually she brings Dr. LaForest back in, and Dr. LaForest takes some pictures. And then she says, Mike and Kimberly, we need to talk about your son. I said, okay, and at this point, we're kind of used to the bad news. And she said, I don't know how to describe this to you, but the cysts on your son's brain are completely gone. And I said, well, check again. Make sure that you're right, make sure that you're accurate. And she said, I've looked everywhere. The cysts are completely gone from his brain. So now we're looking at each other, celebrating, we got our miracle, and it's so exciting. I said, well, tell me about his feet. His feet are still really curled up. He'll be no athlete. I said, okay, thank you very much. Well, that was the last time we saw our son until he was born. May 10th, 2014. It was actually the Saturday, the day before Mother's Day. We're at my parents' house celebrating, and Kimberly goes into labor. So we go to the doctor, and at 7:48 p.m., May 10th, Kaleb Isaac Douglas was born. And we celebrate, and we see him, we're hugging him, and his feet, yeah, they're curled up in. And the next day, the pediatrician comes in, and as he's there, I said, I need you to check his feet. Just take a look at him. So he walks in, and Kaleb's feet are like this. And then he takes them and he bends them out, and he bends them back in, and he bends them out again. And he looks at us and says, Mike and Kimberly, this kid is flexible. He's going to be quite the athlete. In that moment, there was relief, there was joy. We cried, we hugged, and we celebrated. But the fact is that in life, we have these moments that come up, and they give us opportunities to figure out how we plan. Whether it's for good news or for bad news, making sure that you are taken care of and that your family is taken care of in those tough moments. That's how we build out successful lives, is making sure that the things that matter most to us are the things that are taken care of.